All right, it's time to talk about some of these college football matchups coming up. Week 11 already of the 2025 college football season. Yes, the first 2 months of the season has gone by fast. You're not going to get me to argue with you there. However, let's keep in mind, we have 3 months of football left. We've got the entire month of November here right in front of us, December, and then all of January. The national championship game isn't played till January 19th or 20th, whatever it is. So we still have a lot of college football left, but it is time to look forward to these week 11 matchups. I want to highlight a few of them in this video. There are 3 games this weekend of ranked versus ranked, and in all 3 cases, the higher ranked team is on the road against the lower ranked team. So I want to take a few minutes and talk about these 3 games here. They start at noon. This is an ABC game with BYU, currently ranked 7th, on the road at Texas Tech, currently ranked 8th. Huge matchup here when it comes to the Big 12 and the sort of chase to get to that Big 12 championship game so that, of course, you can hopefully win it and have an opportunity in the college football playoff. BYU is undefeated. Texas Tech only has the 1 loss. So it feels like Texas Tech really has to win this game just to keep their hopes alive for the Big 12 championship and the playoffs. If they were to lose this game, that would obviously be their second loss. They would be 3 games behind BYU because of the head-to-head. So it feels like a must-win spot here for Texas Tech. Most people that I hear from seem to think Texas Tech has been the better team this year. That loss that they had on the road at Arizona State was with a backup quarterback. Every other game that Texas Tech has played this year, every single one, they have won by 23 points or more. There's a lot of talk out there about Indiana, Ohio State, who's better, right? And people keep saying, well, Indiana blows everybody out. They just destroy everybody, that way, which is true. With the exception of the Indiana game on the road at Iowa, all of their games have been relative blowouts. Even the game on the road at Oregon, I feel like the score didn't really represent how much Indiana dominated that game. But anyway, that's a different story for a different day. Texas Tech is the same thing, though. Texas Tech they're not just winning games. People talk about Georgia. Oh, Georgia keeps winning all these close games, these second half comebacks. When's it going to catch up to? Texas Tech is the opposite. Texas Tech goes in and they just obliterate people. Every single win they have had this year has been by 23 points or more. And like I mentioned, their 1 loss was on the road at Arizona State about a month ago when they had a backup quarterback. Their starting quarterback is back now. BYU, on the other hand, underrated. Not rankings-wise. I think they're getting the respect they deserve here at number 7, unless you want to make the case they should be 4 ahead of all the 1-loss teams. But the public perception of BYU, to me, is just it never seems to match sort of the reality on the field. And you might say, well, they did this last year, Lou. That's true. They got to this point last year undefeated, if you'll remember, a top 10 ranking. And then they lost a couple of games in the month of November and ended up not even making the conference championship game, never mind the playoffs. And the potential is there that happens again starting this week on the road at Texas Tech. Now, BYU is a veteran team. They're physical. They have good lines of scrimmage, and they don't make a lot of mistakes. They don't beat themselves. So whoever it is that's going to beat BYU, whether it's Texas Tech or somebody else down the road, you're going to have to beat them. They're not going to come out here and commit a bunch of turnovers and penalties and give you short field position and things. It's just not going to happen. You're going to have to go in there and beat them. Texas Tech, like I said, has been an absolute machine outside of that 1 game on the road at Arizona State. Texas Tech is at home. Hard to win at the Big Tortilla there in Lubbock. Now, Texas Tech is favored by 10.5, and you might say, how in the world is Texas Tech ranked 8th with a loss, a 10.5-point favorite over a higher-ranked team, BYU, who's undefeated? I tend to agree. Maybe I'm falling for sort of the lull you to sleep trap that is the BYU team every single year. They're pretty good, and just no one talks about them, and no one believes in them. And maybe I'm falling into that trap, and this November will be different than last November. If that's the case, they'll go into Lubbock and win the game. They've been doubted multiple times this season, BYU has, at least by me, and by a lot of people. The Utah game. Most people that I heard from picked Utah to beat them. BYU won the game. Their game a few weeks ago on the road at Iowa State. Oh, trap game, better be careful coming out of a rivalry game, a typical look-ahead trap spot type of deal or whatever. BYU went in there and won the game again. And now here we go on the road at Texas Tech, noon on ABC. BYU's an underdog. Vegas says that Texas Tech is 10 points better. Most people I talk to are picking Texas Tech. I will admit I have been higher on Texas Tech this year than I have BYU. And I'm either going to be right or I'm going to fall for it again, and BYU is going to trick me. I think Texas Tech wins this game at home. And I actually like Texas Tech minus the 10.5. Again, they have been a covering machine. If you look at these college football games, and I know some of you do, some of you don't. If you look at these games from a betting angle, you look for teams that these teams tend to cover. These teams tend to not cover. Georgia tends to not cover. Texas Tech tends to cover. They've covered all but one game this year. Like I said, winning every game by 23 points or more. I don't expect them to win this one by 23 points at home, but I think they can win by a couple of touchdowns. Give me Texas Tech at home to knock off undefeated and higher ranked BYU. Now we move into a couple of afternoon games. Oregon on the road at Iowa. And again, Oregon, the road team, is the favorite here at Iowa, favored by 6.5. Now, Iowa's got a couple of losses. Oregon has the one loss to Indiana. Talked about it a little bit a minute ago. Iowa's also played Indiana. Close game. I think it was 20-15. It was tied in the second half, maybe the fourth quarter even, if I remember, it was tied. Iowa gave Indiana their best game. Like BYU, if you're going to beat Iowa, you got to beat them. They're going to play good defense. They've got great special teams. They love to sit on the ball and chew up the clock. Possessions could be limited here. Now, do they have an explosive offense? Not really. They have scored more points this season than we're accustomed to seeing Iowa score. They've scored in the 30s and 40s multiple times this year in Big Ten games. But they still can't throw the ball to save their life. Their quarterback barely has 1,000 yards receiving over the course of the entire season so far. So they, again, run the ball, defense, special teams, field position. They don't commit penalties. They tend not to turn the ball over, and they tend to force you into making those kinds of mistakes, right? Block punts, blocked field goals, a big Iowa kick return. Smothering defense, make you sort of earn every yard, limit the explosive plays, make you sort of march down the field as opposed to the big sort of over the top 40, 50, and 60-yard plays, which, of course, Oregon loves to do. If Oregon is for real, they're going to have to prove it in this game here, because I'm going to be honest, there's not a whole lot Oregon has done this season to earn a number 9 ranking. Their best win is on the road at Penn State in overtime. Now, I don't necessarily look down at Oregon on that game the way some people are now. You're seeing the Penn State play now every week, and you're going, how in the hell did Oregon take overtime to beat them? I just don't think that was the same Penn State team. Penn State had a bye week before that. I think that was sort of that was sort of Penn State's line in the sand for the season. James Franklin, very documented struggles against top 10 teams, against the top teams in the Big Ten, all those kinds of things. And I just think sort of everything Penn State had went into that Oregon game. And when it didn't go their way, we, of course, saw what happened. They lost the following week on the road at UCLA. And I just feel like Penn State has just crumbled and fell apart. I don't think the team that Oregon beat in overtime at Penn State is the same Penn State team we're seeing now. But the reality is that is their best win. Then you've got the home game against Indiana, where honestly Oregon got handled for the majority of that game. A lot of the areas where you would maybe think Oregon would have an advantage over a team like Indiana appeared to have the advantages in that game. The Wisconsin game they played a couple of weeks ago, 21-7, after the 2 or 3 teams that played Wisconsin before that had shut them out and beat them, 37-0, 35-0, just a terrible Wisconsin team. And Oregon just kind of played around with them at home in Oregon. I know it was raining, but it's just, they seem to be just sort of muddling along here. Maybe they're bored. Maybe they're uninterested. They went 12-0 in the Big Ten last year. So maybe they're like, this is easy. We just kind of come out here and do what we have to do to win these games and wait on the postseason. Maybe they learned some lessons from last year, right? They were kind of beating their chests. They went 12-0, won the Big Ten championship, sitting there at 13-0. They had beat Ohio State at home. They had beat who was it? They had beat Penn State in the Big Ten championship game. They had a first round bye in the playoffs. Everything was great, right? And then Ohio State comes into the Rose Bowl and just blows them off the field. Maybe they learned some lessons from that, and they're sort of just like a snowball effect. They're it's sort of just going to get a little bit better week to week, sort of work up to kind of how you want to be playing your best ball at the end of the year, that kind of thing. There's sort of everything is geared towards the postseason this year, maybe. But this is a game where Oregon's going to have to give their best effort. If they show up here at Iowa and roll the football out on the field and expect to win, that's not going to happen. Iowa is more than capable of beating Oregon if Oregon shows up expecting some sort of a cakewalk or to be gifted a win just because just because they're Oregon. I am going to give Oregon, Dan Lanning, and that offense and all that talent on that roster one more opportunity here to prove to Uncle Lou that they are the team that I thought they were at the beginning of the season and that they are the team that I think they can be. I think they're going to go into Iowa and get the win. They're favored by 6.5. This is a tough one here because I think there's a possibility Iowa wins this game. Never mind the plus 6.5 points from the betting side of it. I think there's a chance at home Iowa wins this thing. But I'm going to give Oregon one more opportunity here to sort of convince me that they are the national title contending team that a lot of people thought they had the potential to be heading into the start of the season. I'm going to take Oregon on the road here, and I think they cover the 6.5. Finally, we've got Texas A&M on the road at Missouri. This is weird because all three of these games I feel like involve teams that people have sort of strong opinions on. BYU, oh, they're not any good, they're terrible, they're overrated, they do this every year. The Oregon-Iowa game, Iowa's offense is terrible, they can't score any points, Oregon to go in there and blow them out. Texas A&M on the road at Missouri. I hear from people, and I've been hearing from people every Tuesday and Thursday on the call-in show when it comes to Texas A&M, they're overrated, they're not any good. Texas 8-4, they're going to blow it, they'll choke, they're going to lose 3 games. Well, no, they're not. Could they lose 1 or 2? Yeah, and it could start this week on the road at Missouri. This is going to be a good test here for Texas A&M. Now, they went into a hostile LSU a couple of weeks ago and beat them so bad a grown man got fired. So I don't think they're going to be intimidated by what I think is one of the worst home field advantages in the SEC. I'll just say it. I'm not saying Missouri doesn't have a home field advantage. Everybody has some degree of a home field advantage. But if you stack up the home field advantages or how difficult you think it is to play at certain stadiums within the SEC, you're going to name a lot of teams before you ever get to Missouri. I don't mean that as any shade at Missouri. It's got nothing to do with how good they are as a team. It's just, you got to be realistic here. You can name a lot of SEC stadiums that are much more intimidating and more difficult to play in than Missouri. It is what it is. And because Texas A&M just went on the road at LSU and destroyed LSU, I seriously doubt Texas A&M is going to be intimidated or overwhelmed by the environment here on the road at Missouri, particularly in a 3:30 game as opposed to maybe a night game. Texas A&M is a road favorite here, 6.5 points, so just under a touchdown. I do not have the doubts about Texas A&M that a lot of people seem to have. I think they are a legitimately good team. Not only that, I think they're a complete team. Without their best running back for the majority of the year, they've still been able to run the ball. They've got a Heisman caliber quarterback in Marcel Reed, who is putting up video game highlights every single week with his arm and his legs. I think he's a legitimate contender to win the Heisman Trophy. I think he will be a finalist for sure. Him, Mendoza, Sayin at Ohio State, possibly Ty Simpson at Alabama, too. I think those 4 are clearly the front runners for the Heisman. And I think Marcel Reed's got as good a chance of any of those other guys of actually picking it up there at the end of the year. They've played really good defense for the most part. Throughout the majority of the season, they're well coached. Mike Elko reminds me a lot of Ferentz at Iowa. Like he gets the most out of what he's got. They're a disciplined team. They don't beat themselves. Missouri's going to have to win this game, and let's not forget they're on to a backup quarterback now. They went to the portal and brought in Pribula from Penn State, and he was wowing people the first 6 weeks of the season. He was playing really good. Unfortunately for Missouri, he broke his leg a couple of weeks ago, so he's, of course, out for the season. So Missouri will be starting a backup quarterback here. Ahmad Hardy, the running back from Missouri, is somebody that I was really high on the first month of the season. He was putting up 150, 200, 250 yards a game. He was leading the country in rushing through the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season. Where's he been the last month or so? He's been disappointing to me in some of Missouri's biggest games of the season. I don't want to call him a no-show. I'm not, obviously the tougher teams are going to be more of a challenge to put up some of those numbers, but he's been extremely disappointing to me, Ahmad Hardy, over the last about month or so, as opposed to the first month of the season. If Missouri's got any chance here of pulling off this upset at home against Texas A&M, he's going to have a monster game like he was having the first month of the season as opposed to the last few games they've played, because they're going to have to keep the ball away from Texas A&M, because I do not think Missouri can keep up with Texas A&M in a shootout type of game. The Texas A&M game at Notre Dame, which seems like forever ago now, I thought the entire time Notre Dame was going to win that game. I was just, Texas A&M not going to keep up with them, right? Well, Texas A&M did keep up with them, and in fact, ended up winning the game at the end. Missouri doesn't have the ability to do that. If this game gets into the 30s, I don't think Missouri's got any chance at all. They're going to have Ahmad Hardy have a really good game, play keep away, long drives, chew up the clock, keep the Texas A&M offense off the field. Now, that sounds great. That's easier said than done against this Texas A&M defense. You also have the possibility that Eli Drinkwitz' mind may be wandering other places. I don't know. Some coaches seem to be affected by rumors involving their name with other head coaching positions, and Eli Drinkwitz, of course, is in that position right now. His name has been mentioned for everything from Penn State to Florida and everything in between. How much of a distraction will that be? Will it be a distraction at all? Don't really know. Some coaches tend to handle that better than others. Lane Kiffin has handled it really well at Ole Miss, hasn't seemed to slow them down at all. Matt Rule at Nebraska seemed to have a problem with it in my mind. That if you go back to when James Franklin was first fired the following week, his name was immediately mentioned as a possible replacement at Penn State for James Franklin. He, of course, is from there, went there. That following week, Northwestern went on the road to, I think it was Minnesota. Was it Minnesota, and lost 24-6? Didn't even score a touchdown. So it affects different people differently. How is Eli Drinkwitz in Missouri going to handle sort of the outside noise of Drinkwitz possibly being a candidate for some other positions? I'm not sure. And to be honest, I'm not sure that it matters. I was not high on Missouri all of last year when they were busy being ranked and losing to every good team they played. And so far, that's been the case again this year. At some point, Missouri has got to start winning some of these ranked matchups that they're playing. And to this point, both last year and this year, they failed to do that. And I just don't have any, well, I don't want to say any, I don't have enough faith in Missouri right now that they're going to be able to do it against what I truly believe is one of the best teams in the country and the best team in the SEC, the most complete team in the SEC, Texas A&M. I think there's a better chance Texas A&M blows them out than there is that Texas A&M loses. So for that reason, I'm going to take Texas A&M and I'm going to lay the points. Now, I've taken the favorite in all three of these games, and you know what that means. It's not likely all of those favorites win. And look, when I do these videos, believe me, I look for any reason to sort of pick against the grain, to have sort of a contrarian opinion on these games if I can find any sort of reason to do it. Because it's kind of boring to just come on and say, well, I think all the favorites are going to win. Plus, we all know that never happens. So if I was going to rank now like the possible upsets in these three games, because I have picked all three favorites to win, I've got Texas A&M beating Missouri, I've got Oregon beating Iowa, and back at the noon game, I've got Texas Tech beating BYU. Texas Tech is at home with one loss in a must-win situation. I don't think they're going to lose. I think that's probably the least likely upset that we see would be Texas Tech losing. I think the most likely upset would be Oregon and Iowa. I will admit that I am not as high on Iowa as I might need to be, and they've got a chance to prove it. They played Indiana extremely tough. Oregon has not looked impressive in their other two ranked matchups, whether you're talking Penn State or, of course, their loss to Indiana. So I think that's the most likely upset, although I am picking Oregon. And I would put the Texas A&M Missouri game maybe in the middle there. But we'll see. That's why they play the games. And believe it or not, I have been wrong before. If you remember back in 2019, I actually picked Georgia to beat South Carolina, and they didn't. So I have been wrong before. Hey, shout out to Sleeper for sponsoring today's video. They've been kind enough to sponsor some of the videos this season. Make sure you check them out. Download the Sleeper app today. The link is in the description down below. You can use the promo code LOU, and they've got two great promotions. First off, you don't even have to make a deposit. Just download the app using the link down below, promo code LOU, create a new account, and you're going to get a free $20 play. It's that easy and it's that simple. You don't even have to deposit any money. If you decide to make a deposit over on the Sleeper app, they're going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. So you deposit 100, you've got 200. You deposit 50, you've got 100. So 2 great promotions over on the Sleeper app. Let's help take care of the people that are taking care of the channel. Shout out to Sleeper for sponsoring today's video. All right, everybody, I do appreciate you watching. Subscribe if you're not. Hit the thumbs up and have a good morning.